You're welcome. Good morning. I thought today we would do some sun salutations, which is a nice mix of lots of different kinds of positions. And I'm going to guide you through doing this on the floor or in the chair because we can do the sun salutations completely with either position, especially if shoulders or knees or wrists are not happy, then the chair is a nice alternative. But we're going to start in a seated position. So whether you're on a chair or on the ground, find a way that you can be comfortable. We are going to use a strap and probably a block or two. So if you've got those, you can have those nearby. And I'm going to sit on a block today, but you're welcome to sit on a folded blanket or a cushion, whatever you got. And sitting on the floor sometimes is not the most comfy. So we're going to be on our seat for a little while. If you feel like you need to change positions at any time, please go ahead and do so. Whether it's shifting how your legs are or even coming up to your chair, doesn't matter. And when you feel comfortable, just rest your hands wherever they can be at ease. Soften your shoulders a little bit. Sit in a way that your spine and your posture can feel like there is a sense of alertness without tension. And then you can soften or close your eyes. And as you do, invite your attention inwards, beginning to just notice how you feel today. And noticing as if you're just checking in on a good friend. So, no need for any critiques, just simply observe. And now bring that observing attention to your breath. And just spend a few moments following the in breath and the out breath with your attention. And as you continue to breathe, bring one or both hands to rest on your chest and just tune into the movement that you can sense at your chest, at your rib cage. And just see if you notice a sense of rising and falling with your inhales and exhales. And now bring your hands down to your belly. Same thing here. As you breathe naturally, do you notice any movement here? You don't need to make any movement happen. First, just sit back and notice. And now for the next few rounds of breath, try to draw your inhales all the way down to your low belly on purpose. And just allowing the exhales to follow to be long and smooth. And take a few nice belly breaths like this. And let's let this go. Relax your hands. Breathe easy, just breathing naturally. And now let's move with our breath. As you inhale, bring your arms up overhead. Draw your palms together. And as you exhale, trace your hands down the center line. Let's do that a few times. Moving with your breath if you like, or picking a different pace if you prefer. Exhales to come back down, and inhales to reach back up. One more time. And this time, as you bring your hands back down, just let your hands come to rest at the center of your chest. And as you inhale, send your right arm up and your left down, just reaching them away from each other. As you exhale, come on back to that center point, and then inhale the other side up. And keep going a couple times. Feel as if you can reach nice and long and making some space inside your body. And the next time you bring your hands back to center, we'll let it go. Shake them out. Nice. Let's just do a few shoulder rolls here. Roll them up and back. And the other way. Nice. Soften. Let them rest. Take a breath. All right, let's do a few more arm movements here. So bring one arm out in front of you. Bring the other one to rest on your ribs, just on your low ribs. Nice. Soften your shoulders here. So we're not starting with the shoulders scrunched up. They're nice and easeful. And all we're going to do here is lift the arm up and bring it back down. And as you do, notice what's going on at your ribs. When you lift up, if you find that your ribs are lifting as well, then just make the arm movement smaller so that your rib cage can stay nice and still. You're just getting familiar with your range of motion, whatever is available at this shoulder today. And let's switch it up. Other side. Same thing here. See how symmetrical or not your shoulders might be. I don't know anybody who's symmetrical in their shoulders. Nice. Let it go. Shake it out. Rest your hands wherever they're comfy. Let's move our spine a bit. We'll go through cat and cow movements with the spine. So, first, soften your shoulders. Tune into your breath again. We'll start off moving with the breath, and then you can continue there or take your own pace. So, with your inhale, arch your back. As you do, roll your shoulders back, look up. And as you exhale, go the other way, rounding through your spine. Let your shoulders curl forward and just go back and forth. Cat and cow poses. And one more time, like this. And then come back to neutral. Feel what neutral feels like. And we're going to do a couple of those real nice and slow, but really feel what that feels like in your spine and your ribs and your pelvis. So let's start with our cow pose, arching your back. Just feel what it feels like for your ribs to pop forward. Your pelvis is going to tilt forward a little bit, depending on how you're sitting. And then slowly come back to neutral. Think about stacking your pelvis nice and neutral, your ribs right on top of your pelvis, shoulders are soft. And now we'll go the other way, rounding into cat pose. Just see what that feels like. And back to neutral once again. Soften your shoulders once you get here. Okay, let's try some more of those arm movements. And again, with one hand on the rib cage to have a sense for whether your torso can stay fairly neutral. But this time, instead of lifting just straight up and down, we're going to have our arm out a little bit out to the side. So just same thing, lifting up and down. Just slightly different position. Breathe easy as you go. Notice if you can still feel a little bit of that rhythm of breath at your rib cage. All right, let this one go. Switch sides. Same thing here. All right, let it go. Shake it out. Nice. Let's try another spinal movement. This time we'll do a bit of a twist. So bring both hands to rest on your side ribs. Find that neutral spine again. So you're not arching or rounding, you're nice and neutral. And then bring a sense of length to your spine, as if you could get just a tiny bit taller without hiking your shoulders. Just see how much can you lengthen. Probably not a lot, but just bring that quality of length. And now keep that as we twist our ribs over to the right and back to center and over to the left. And try this one a few times. Back and forth. Can you breathe easy even as you twist? I like to exhale to go to the side and inhale to come back to center. You can see if that feels good for you to do. And come on back to center again. Release your arms, shake them out. Let's do a few more shoulder rolls here. Nice. Soften, let that go. Take an easy breath. Just noticing how your breath feels at your rib cage, at your belly. Does your breath feel different for anybody after a few of those movements? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes it is, sometimes it doesn't. It's all right. Okay, let's try some rotations in our arms now. So bring one arm out to the side, bring the other hand to the front of your shoulder, and try to rotate the whole arm in and out. Focus on your upper arm bone doing the movements. So the lower arm is just kind of following along. And with this other hand, you can notice if the whole shoulder wants to move, if it wants to lift and lower. And same as with the other arm movements, try to just move your arm and let the shoulder itself stay nice and still. All right, let it go. Let's try that again. Other side. Let this side go as well. Nice. Give it a general shake. Rest your hands. Take a breath. All right. For spine, a little bit more movement. We're going to bring one hand down to the ground or the side of your chair. If you can't easily touch the ground here, depending on what you're sitting on, you can bring a prop by your side so you can rest your hand on that. So, one hand down, same thing, nice, alert sense of posture. And with your next inhale, bring the other arm up by the side of your ear, lengthen through your spine. Now let's tip over to the side, coming into a little bit of a side bend. Take a breath or so here. And then as you come back up to center, bring both arms up, have a little reach up here. And then float the other hand down towards the ground or the side of your chair. Nice. Bring that sense of length and alertness to your spine. And then tip over the other way. Breath or so here. And then come all the way back up. Bring both arms up again. If you like, you can interlace your fingers, flip your palms up and reach up. And then exhale, let it go. Nice. Shake it out. Okay. All right, we're going to do a few more of those arm movements, but this time we're going to use a strap. So grab your strap. I like to fold mine in half just so I don't have the ends kind of hanging around. But do what works depending on what kind of strap you've got. If you're at home, you can always use a scarf or a belt, anything that's this kind of shape. All right, and hold it so that your hands are about shoulder distance apart. So if you bring your hands back towards your shoulders, they're right kind of in front of your shoulders. And reach them straight out. And this time, instead of lifting and lowering, what we're going to do is just reach our arms forward, so much so that it feels like your shoulder blades on the back of your body are kind of rolling around forward. Nice. And then plug your arms back into your shoulder sockets and try to pull those two shoulder blades in towards each other on your back. Nice. Let's go back and forth a few times. Reach forward, plug back in. Nice. A couple times. Getting that sense of reaching forward and plugging back in. And now notice what's going on at your rib cage. Is there a sense of your ribs moving forward and back at all in any which way? Can you try to allow them to be a little bit more neutral? See if that's possible. Notice if your elbows want to bend, notice if your shoulders want to creep up. Just see how much movement can you find with a general sense of neutrality in the rest of your body. Let it go when you're ready. Give your shoulders a bit of a shake. Nice. Okay. Let's do a few shoulder rolls between sides. So between different movements, we're going to go somewhere different after. Okay. Grab that strap again. This time we're going to hold it with our hands more of an outer shoulder distance apart. So if you bring your hands back in towards your shoulders, you're more on the outside rather than right in front of your shoulders. Nice. Bring your arms out in front of you. And now, holding the strap, we're going to do some of those rotations just like before. So think about your upper arm bone rotating. Internal rotation so that you're getting some slack in your strap. External rotation so you're bringing more tension to the strap. Nice. Let's do that a few times. Internal, external. Try to not let the movement be just at the forearms. They'll do that for you if you let them. But focus instead on the upper arm bones doing the movement. Nice. Just getting used to the feeling of internal and external rotation. Nice. Let it go. Again, shake it out. Have a few circles in your shoulders if you'd like. All right. Let's bring our hands back to shoulder distance apart and bring the strap out in front of us. Nice. One more time. Reach your hands forward. Plug them back in. And then try and find kind of the middle point between that, where there's a sense of reaching forward and also a sense of having your shoulders plugged right in. Nice. Just hold there. Keep that sense of engagement in your arms as you reach your arms up overhead. See how far you can go without your ribs wanting to pop forward. And then bring it back down. Nice. Let the strap go. Shake it out. Maybe you want to have a bit of spine movement here. Maybe some of that cat and cow movement. Maybe a little bit of twisty movement. It's up to you. And again, outer shoulder distance apart. Nice. This time, what we're going to do is find external rotation. So turning so that you're bringing more tension onto your strap. Nice. Check that you're not hiking your shoulders up. See if they can remain kind of easeful. And then bring your arms up overhead. How far can you go without your ribs wanting to pop forward? Just explore. Maybe actually let's lower and lift a few times, keeping that sense of external rotation. As if your upper arm is turned out a bit of slack or a bit of tension, sorry, on your strap. Once you bring your arms up, we'll keep them up. whatever height they come to, wherever you can go without popping your ribs forward. And then we're just going to tilt forward just a tiny bit. Think about having a nice straight line all the way along your torso and up your arms. And then come all the way back, set the strap down, set it off to the side, and shake it out. Nice. All right. How's everyone feeling? Okay. All right. We are going to try some sun salutations. And before we do, let's come up to our feet and just move around a little bit. So we've been sitting for a while. So make your way up. Nice. Once you're here, just give your legs a little bit of a shake. Lovely. Can do a little bit of a wider stance, whatever suits you. Nice. Let's just do a little bit of side to side. Bend one knee, shift over to the side. Go the other way. Try that a couple of times. Get a little bit of stretch through your legs. Nothing too big to start off with. And come on back to center. Step your feet closer in towards each other until you come back to more of a neutral stance. Nice. Give everything a little bit of a shake. All right, and we're going to try just a really simple forward fold here. And you can have either your blocks in front of you for the forward fold, or your chair if you've got a chair, or nothing at all. That's fine too. All we're going to do is try our forward fold in two ways. If you have any trouble with your back, then I would suggest doing our halfway fold, keeping your spine in neutral. If you know your back is happy and healthy, then you can do the other version, which is a little bit more of a rounding after we start into our forward fold. So step one, bring your hands to your hip creases. And as you fold forward, try to keep your spine in neutral. So folding forward, notice if you start rounding through your spine. And if you find that, then just come back up to whatever position allows you to stay in neutral. So you might be here, you might be here, you might come down a little farther. See what works for you, and then come on back up. Nice. And you can do that again, or if your back is happy, you can fold forward, stay in a neutral spine, and then soften your knees and curl forward a bit more. Your hands can come down to your blocks or your chair or the ground. It's up to you. Take a breath here. And as you inhale, come back up to that point where your spine can be in a more neutral shape. Hands can rest on your legs or your chair if you've got that in front of you. And then fold back down again. If you're staying in neutral, you can just let your head hang down here if that's comfy. If your spine is happy to curl forward, you can go there. And this time, let's come all the way back up to standing. Once you get back up to a standing position, reach your arms up overhead, just reach up a bit. And then exhale, let them come back down. Nice. Bit of a shake out. Okay. So now we're going to try some of our sun salutations, and I'm going to guide you through ways to do it on the ground or on your chair. So what I'm going to do is really briefly show you the version on the ground and the version on the chair, and then we're going to try it together, but you pick which version works for you. So first I'm going to show you the version on the ground, a little bit more familiar, and then I'll show you what we're going to do in the chair. So if we're on the ground, we're going to start standing up at the top of the mat, and you can have your blocks here up at the top of your mat for a little bit of help with the forward fold and transitions between poses. And it's just going to look like this. I'm going to go through super fast just to show you. We're going to start with a sun breath, and then we're going to fold forward that halfway point. You can either stay here, maybe with your hands on your blocks or on your legs, or you can curl all the way down. And from there, we're going to come back to a plank, which is just like this. We're going to come all the way down to the ground. We're going to do a little bit of a back bend, our baby cobra here. And then we're going to come up to tabletop, up to a downward facing dog. And then we're going to come back up to standing. And do a little bit of a forward fold at the end there, but that's the basic, the basic shapes we're gonna go through. Not that fast. Now, one thing I wanna do is give you some variations for that downward facing dog. When we did our arm movements, if you found that you can come up to somewhere a little bit less than here without your ribs popping forward, then downward facing dog, when we're on the ground, has your arms kind of in that position. So if you're somewhere more here, then what you might want to do is choose one of these alternatives. So, alternative one is your puppy pose, where you keep your knees on the ground and you just walk your hands forward and get a bit of a stretch like this. Nice. Another alternative is to take your wrists out of the game and have your forearms on the ground so that you can lift your hips up off the ground and your knees up off the ground, but have your elbows and your forearms here for a bit of support. So, I'll give you a few cues once we get there to go all the way through. So, how do we do all of that in the chair? I'm going to show you again super quickly, and then we're going to do it all together. So, if you're going to use your chair, I'm just going to tilt this so I can face towards you a little bit more here. We're going to use a pair of blocks and this strap, and we're going to do some of those arm movements that we did when we were seated. So, I'm going to scooch a little bit closer in here. If you are using a chair at home, I always like to point out that you want to have your chair on your mat or on some surface that is not slippery, so you don't go traveling anywhere with that chair. All right, so it'll look like this. We'll do our sun breath to begin with, just like we do in standing, and our forward fold will be either this, our halfway point, or curled all the way down like this. We can do our forward fold halfway up like that, come back up to sitting upright. And then instead of a plank, we're going to do the arms just like we had before with the strap in hands, arms straight out, and find that balance between pressing forward and plugging our arms back in. We're going to stay there for a couple of breaths. And then instead of our Cobra Pose on the ground, we're going to draw our hands back towards our shoulders and then do our cow pose just like this. And then we'll come back to neutral, bring our hands a little bit wider on the strap, and then we're going to do downward facing dog. Arms just like this. Exactly what we did before. Arms lifted, a little bit of external rotation, tilt forward just a little bit. Find that upper body shape with our downward facing dog. Come on back up. And we can finish with our forward folds and such. Okay, so that's a quick and dirty overview of where we're going. So get yourself set up, whether you're seated in your chair with your blocks by the sides of your feet and your strap nearby, or you can be standing up at the top of your mat with your blocks on the sides of your feet up here. So choose what suits you. I'm going to have the chair nearby for me too, because I'm going to be hopping back and forth to show you the different options. So find your position, seated or standing. Have your feet flat on the ground. If you're seated, you can have your hands resting on your legs. If you're standing, just let your arms rest by your sides. And wherever you are, soften your shoulders. Take a nice, easy breath here. As you inhale, bring both arms up. And as you exhale, hinge at your hips and come into your halfway forward fold. Your hands can be resting on your legs if you are standing. And you can either stay here or you can curl all the way down into a bit more of a forward fold. Tune into your breath here. And as you inhale, come back up about halfway to that more neutral position on your spine. Exhale, come back into your forward fold. And here's where we're going to take some different pathways. If you're on the ground, keep your hands right down on the ground, step your feet back, come into your plank pose. If you're seated in your chair, come right back up to your seated position. Bring your spine back to a neutral position and grab your strap. If you're on the ground, come all the way down to the ground. Knees down, lower all the way down. And just take a breather here. If you're seated in your chair, we're going to do our plank arms with the strap, just like before, straight out ahead. Find that balance between pressing forward and plugging back in. Nice. All right. And let's meet up again, setting up for our Cobra Pose. If you're on the ground, set your hands on the ground by the sides of your shoulders. If you're seated, draw your hands back. So you've got the strap across your chest, your hands kind of right by the sides of your shoulders. Nice. Soften your shoulders. If you're on the ground, roll your shoulders up and back. Nice. Nice long spine. Lengthen up through the top of your head and then curl your head and your chest up. Nice. Find your little back bend. Take a breath or so here. And then come back to a more neutral position. Take a moment, just rest. Let your arms rest. Set the strap to the side if you've been using it. Lovely. Breathe easy. And if you're on the ground, come back up to your tabletop position. Find yourself on hands and knees. Take a breath. Let's set ourselves up for downward facing dog. If you want to be on your forearms for downward facing dog, you can bring your elbows down to the ground, kind of stacking your elbows underneath your shoulders. If you want to take one of the other options, then bring your hands outer shoulder distance apart. So a little bit wider than shoulders. Nice. For most of us, that means that if you spread your fingers nice and wide, your pinky finger is going to be close to the edge of your mat, if not off of the edge of your mat. If you're seated in your chair, we're going to do the same thing with our strap. Hands out or shoulder distance apart. Nice, straight out in front of you. Everybody, let's add some external rotation. So even if your hands are planted on the ground, you're going to try and rotate that upper arm a little bit out. Your hands are going to stay planted, but you're bringing that sense of engagement to your arms. Nice. If you're seated in a chair, bring your arms up overhead. If you are on the ground, you can either shift your hips all the way back for puppy pose or tuck your toes under, lift your knees off the ground, and send your hips up and back for your downward facing dog. Nice. Wherever you are, take a breath or so here. Feel free to take a break whenever you need to. All right. And then we're going to let this one go. If you're in downward facing dog, soften your knees, look up at your hands, and walk your feet back up towards your hands. If you're in your chair, you can just set the strap off to the side and sit nice and neutral. And we're in forward fold. If we're standing at the mat, soften your knees, let your head hang down. You can be at the halfway point like this, or you can be curled down. And if you're seated in your chair, come on down into your forward fold so you can be at the same point with us. Nice. Tune into your breath here. As you inhale, come halfway up. Find that more neutral shape in your spine. As you exhale, lower back down. If you're standing, make sure to soften your knees a bit to help with this movement. And then with your next inhale, come all the way back up to standing upright or sitting in a more neutral shape. Reach your arms up when you get to the top. Exhale, bring your hands down by your sides. Nice. Give everything a little shake out. Nice. And we'll take a moment between different rounds of our sun salutation to just be still. Let your arms rest, let your shoulders be soft. Feel your feet on the ground. Okay. How's everyone doing? All right. Okay. We're going to do that again, but we're going to add one more piece. If that worked for you, you can stay right there and do the same thing. Otherwise, what I'm going to add in is some lunges. So it'll look like this. When we're standing on our mat, it's going to be forward fold. And instead of going right back to our plank, we're going to step one leg back to come into our lunge like this. This is where it's nice to have our blocks if you've got them. Just keeps your hands a little bit higher. So when you step back, you've got a bit of support. And if you're on your chair, it's going to look different. It is going to be this movement of lifting one leg up and holding it up like this. And if you've got blocks handy on your chair, what you can do if you want a little bit of extra support to hold that leg up is to have your foot on the block. Okay? So let's do it all again. Get everything set up just like before. Blocks handy, strap handy if you're going to use it. Standing or sitting with your feet connected to the ground. Arms resting, shoulders soft. Start with a breath. As you inhale, bring both arms up. And then as you exhale, hinge at your hips, fold forward. Find that halfway point. You can rest your hands on your legs if you're standing. And then you can stay here or fold all the way down. Tune into your breath. And as you inhale, come back up to that more halfway point, neutral spine. And then as you exhale, fold back down. If you're standing, we're going to step one leg back. Let's start with the right leg, stepping it back to find your lunge shape. If you're seated in your chair, come back up to sitting. And then bring your left knee up and hold it with your hands or set it on your block, setting your foot on your block. Nice. All right. And if you're on the ground, feel your feet on the ground. Hug one foot towards the other and then lift yourself up. Bring your hands up to your hips. Nice. All right. If you're standing and this is a real balancing act, you're welcome to have the back knee down on the ground. That's up to you. We'll stay here for a breath or two. Maybe your hands stay where they are. Maybe you lift one or both up. Totally up to you. Breathe here. And then we'll softly let this go. Bring your hands back down to the ground if you're standing, and just set your foot right back down on the ground if you're seated in your chair. Now we're going to go to our plank. So if you're seated in your chair, grab that strap. Use the plank arms. If you're on the ground, bring your hands right down to the nice solid ground and step that front foot back. So you're finding your plank. Awesome. Plank on the ground or plank arms seated in your chair. Take a breath here. And then let it go. Lower yourself down if you're on the ground. Set that strap down. If you are seated, just take a breath. All right, and let's set ourselves up for our little cobra. So if you're on the ground, bring your hands to the ground by the sides of your shoulders. If you're in your chair, grab your strap. Bring your hands out to your plank arms again. And then bend your elbows and pull that strap back towards your chest. So your hands are close to your shoulders. Nice. Let's roll our shoulders up and back. Lengthen through the spine. And peel your head and your chest back a little bit. Find your Cobra Pose. Try not to crank your head back. Try to allow your spine to be kind of in line with the rest, or your neck to be in line with the rest of your spine. And then let's let it go. Lower back down, set your strap down, let everything rest for a moment. And if you are on your belly on the ground, what you can do here is rock your hips from side to side. All right. If you're on the ground, let's come up to our tabletop. Okay, we're going to try another downward facing dog. So if you're on the ground, again, options are to have your forearms down or to have your hands out in the outer shoulder distance apart position. And if you're in your chair, grab your strap. We're going to hold the strap with our hands in the outer shoulder distance position as well. Nice. All right, whether your hands are on the ground or holding your strap, add some external rotation. So it feels like you're trying to spin those upper arms out a little bit, even as your hands are planted on the ground. Check that your hands aren't here. We're gonna have them nice and wide. Yes, awesome. Keep that position. And if you're on the ground, you can either shift your hips right back or you can tuck your toes under and lift your hips up and back into downward facing dog. Can you keep your arms and your shoulders nice and engaged with that external rotation the whole time here? And we'll let this go. Come on down to a tabletop if you're on the ground. Relax your arms if you're seated in your chair. If you're on your mat, you can come back to a child's pose for a breath or two if you like. Stepping your knees a little wider apart, bringing your toes closer together, And then sinking your hips back. Let your forehead come down towards the ground. And if it doesn't touch the ground on its own, bring your hands or a prop, like a block, under your hands. Just take a moment to breathe and rest wherever you are. And then come on back up to your tabletop or just sitting in a nice neutral position if you're in your chair. All right, and from here, we're going to do our lunge on the other side. So if you're on the ground, here's another good use for those blocks. You can bring your hands onto the blocks so that there's a little bit more space to step the right leg forward. You can lift yourself up a little bit more to find that big step. But you can also kind of swing the leg out to the side and bring it around. Whatever path suits you. And if you're seated in your chair, we're going to be lifting the right knee up, either with your foot on the block or just holding onto your leg. And if you are on the ground with your hand on the block or the ground, tuck the back toes under, lift your back knee up off of the ground, find your lunge shape in your legs, and then press your feet down, hug them towards each other, and come on up to a more upright position. Nice. Find your lunge. Keep your legs nice and strong if you're standing on them. And then if you wish, you can lift one or both arms up. Breathe easy here. When you're ready, we'll let this go. Set your foot back down the ground if you're seated in your chair. Bring your hands all the way down to the ground if you're standing. Nice. To the ground or your blocks, whatever you've got. And now we're going to go into a forward fold. So if you're seated in the chair, you can find your forward fold. If you're standing on the ground, step that back foot forward and you're already there in a forward fold. You can stay in that halfway point. You can curl a bit further down. It's up to you. With your next inhale, come on halfway up again. As you exhale, soften your knees and lower back down. And then with an inhale, come all the way up to standing or sitting upright. Swing your arms up when you get to the top. Reach up. And then exhale as you lower your arms back down. Nice. Have a bit of movement if you'd like. Maybe some shoulder rolls. Maybe a bit of spinal movement. Awesome. And making your way back to stillness when you're ready. Arms can rest, shoulders can be soft. Feel your feet on the ground and just breathe. All right. Right now, we're going to come down to the ground and do a little bit of stretching and movement for our legs. If you prefer to stay seated in your chair, you can do so. If you're comfortable to come down to the ground, we're going to stay on the ground for the rest of the class. Just to show you briefly what it looks like in the chair, will be like this, using the strap for a bit of support to stretch the leg a bit, maybe using the block to get a bit of a stretch like this. But if you're comfortable coming down to your back, bring your strap and get comfy. And like I said, we're going to stay on the ground for the rest of the class. So if you would like to bring anything with you for our resting pose at the end of the class, like some blankets or pillows, or if you want to grab socks or sweaters, you can do that. We'll make our way into our resting pose in a couple minutes. And before we start into any movement, just take a moment to feel the back of your body on the ground. Noticing all the points of contact between the back of your body and either the ground or your chair if you're seated. And then if you're on the ground, bring both knees in towards your chest. Give them a little hug. If you're seated, you can do this one knee at a time. If you're on your back, though, you can do a bit of a rock from side to side. And as you come back to center, place one foot down on the ground and grab your strap. And we're going to wrap the strap around the other foot. So if you're on your back, you're reaching your foot up towards the ceiling. If you're sitting in your chair, you're just reaching your foot out straight ahead. I'm just going to have a bit of a stretch for the back of the leg here. So using the strap for some support, flex your foot. So you're trying to pull your toes up towards your nose. Soften your knee a little bit and reach out through your heel. We'll take a few breaths right here. Your leg doesn't have to be as high as mine as it can be over here. It can be a little higher. It's up to you. Just find what works for you today. And then soften that a bit. Bring both sides of the strap into the same hand as leg. The other hand can come to rest on your hip bones. We'll just do some rotations here in our leg this time. So think about your upper leg bone rotating in your hip joints. The whole leg is just rotating in and out. And the other hand can tell you if your hips are wanting to shift around at all with this movement. And the same thing as with the arm movement. If you find that, then make the leg movement smaller so that the rest of your body can stay fairly neutral. And then pause in external rotation with your toes turned out to the side. And you could stay right here, or you can move your leg out to the side a little bit. Use that strap for some support. And take a few breaths right here. And then come on back to center. Nice. If you're on the ground, you can stretch the other leg straight on the ground. Pass the strap into the opposite hand. If you're seated, you can switch hands, but you're going to keep the other leg exactly how it is. And we're going to come into a bit of a twist here. So just move your leg over to the other side. Use the strap for a bit of support. Breathe. If you're sitting in your chair, your leg's going to stay where it is. You're going to turn your torso over into a twist. So see what suits you here and take a couple breaths. Make your way back to neutral when you're ready. Bend your knee in, set that strap off to the side for a couple moments, and then have a little bit of movement. It can be any kind of a wiggly movement or a stretching movement. Take a moment of stillness between sides here. You might like to check in with your legs and your hips. Just notice how they feel one side to the other. All right, let's grab that strap and do the same thing on the other side. Once you've got your strap in place, flex your foot, pull your toes up towards your nose, reach out through your heel, but keep a bit of softness in the back of your knee. See if you can hold those both at the same time. Breathe easy here. All right, soften this one. Switch the strap over to the same hand as leg. We'll try our rotations on this side. Same thing as before. See how much rotation you have available without the rest of your body trying to come along for the ride. So Hips can stay still, spine can stay still without bracing to hold them still. Just maybe dialing back on the leg movement to find a little bit more neutral in the rest of your body. And then pause in external rotation, toes turned out to the side. Stay here or bring your leg out to the side a bit, whatever suits you better. Stay here for a couple of breaths. When you're ready, come on back up to the center. Switch the strap to the other hand. If you're on your back, you can straighten the other leg. And then, if you're on your back, you can move your leg over to the side. If you're in your chair, you can move your torso over into the twist. Breathe here. Stay for 2 or 3 breaths. Find your way back to center again. And we'll set the strap off to the side. Take a moment. You can move or stretch a little bit here. Find your way back to stillness. And as you breathe here, notice how you feel again. Tune in, just observe. And we are ready for our resting pose. If you're comfortable on your back, you're welcome to stay here. Sometimes it's nice to put a couple rolled blankets or pillows under your knees for a bit of support. You're also welcome to come up to a seat or lay on your side or your belly, or even come into a nice restorative pose like legs up the chair or legs up the wall. Do whatever suits you today. And while you get set up, I'll go turn the lights down here in the room. And when you have found a comfortable position, check in with yourself. And if there's any little adjustments you can make to feel a little more comfy, please take those. And then settle in. Allow your body to soften a little bit and maybe tune into a feeling of heaviness in your body. Just noticing that you don't have to do anything to hold yourself up here. You can relax and let the weight of your body be supported by the ground. And we'll stay here just resting for the next few minutes.